FM 94, The Dark. It is that time again. It's time to get to know a band we play here on The Dark. And tonight on the phone, I am talking with David from the band Within Reason. And of course, we've been spinning a lot of Within Reason as of late. Their latest song, Invictus, which has really been taken off on rock radio, including into the top 42. And first of all, David, thanks so much for joining me here on The Dark. And how you doing? And where are you calling from today?
Hey, how's it going? Yeah, thanks for having me on the show. I'm actually calling from Birmingham, Alabama, where it's nice, 65 degrees down here. Much different than I'm sure what you guys are experiencing.
Well, I tell you what, it's funny because it's been mighty cold. We've been in the below zero digits, at least for the last couple of weeks and that. But today is Valentine's, of course, and for some reason, Cupid must have shot an arrow up here. We're getting close to 40 degrees today, so we're liking it today around here.
Oh, wow. Man, that's pretty warm for you guys.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Hey, since it's Valentine's, are you doing anything special tonight?
Not really. Probably just gonna cook dinner for my wife and then hang out. We've been together for 13 years, so it's not that big of a deal anymore. I've already won. I got married to her.
Now, if I said that, I've been married almost 16 years, and if I said it's not a big deal, I'd get beat up, okay? It's just the way it is.
Yeah, I get it.
You get it. It's get it. Well, let's talk about that. Let's talk about your band Within Reason, and obviously this is a band that you and Chris put together. Give us the details and how this band all got together and started.
Well, Chris Dow, our singer, and I were roommates in college at the University of Alabama, and we kind of spent a lot of time, playing little acoustic shows around town and bars and stuff like that. And, we started kind of writing some songs, and after school, we moved about 45 miles down the road to Birmingham, which is both our hometowns, and just kind of put the band together and started, these songs that we had written, we kind of got better at them, and then we started playing out with the full band. And then it just kind of took off from there, and we caught a couple of lucky breaks. I guess like 2 years after the band started, we got an opportunity to go on the TV show One Tree Hill, which was kind of like I don't want to say it's a teeny bopper show, but it might have been. And that was kind of a catalyst that kind of sent us into the professional world of being musicians. And it's kind of, grown from there. We kind of just stuck to our guns and wrote songs about things that we knew about, people that we knew about, experiences that we had. And then we just kept putting out records and doing the best we can. And we're still, we started the band in 2005, and, we're still a completely independent band. Like, we've never really had any label support or that much management. We kind of just do it all ourselves. So it's kind of I don't know, it's weird. It's kind of like there's not really a roadmap for that. So we're kind of like cutting our way through the forest of the industry, so to speak.
Yeah, and it seems like, a lot of bands today are doing that, and they almost have to. I mean, I know back in the day, the big thing was to get that record label signed, you'd have that contract and all that kind of stuff. But as the times have gone on here, that has definitely gone away a lot, and you have to be your own, basically own boss now out there and find a way to get your music out there. How tough is it for you today to get noticed, to get seen out there in the world?
It's a lot harder today than it was last year, and last year was a lot harder than the year before, and so on, because it's like you were saying, a lot of artists are doing that now. So there's a lot of noise out there. The fact that social media is such a tool now, that really gets your music out to the masses, and that's a very helpful thing for independent artists. So when you have, I don't even know the number. I just make up like 10 million bands in the world trying to do the same thing, reach the same goal. It's very difficult. So you kind of have to, outthink the other people and maybe learn from other people in this area and just try to make yourself unique in a way and make enough noise to get above everybody else to get noticed. And it's very hard. I mean, it's a fight every single day.
Is there somebody in the industry, or for that matter, that maybe has been around for a while that has helped you guys out to kind of guide you in that direction, or are you just on your own?
Well, yes, there are. So we've been lucky enough to do a lot of tours with a lot of really big acts, and that all kind of started somewhere in around like 2008 or 2009. We got hooked up with Pop Evil on a date in Florida, and we ended up hanging out and becoming friends with them. And they, somehow got us on a tour with them. And I think that song 155 was like the song they had out then.
Yep.
And we ended up going on a tour with those guys, and they kind of taught us some of the things to do and learn about real touring. And it we would meet people on the road, and we would get pulled on some of these other tours. But we always, ask questions. And one thing we always did when we would play with a big national act, I would always ask them, even if we had 5 minutes with somebody, I would just say, hey, man, tell me the biggest mistake your band ever made. And everybody was quick to answer that question. And that way, what we did, we called it collecting pearls. We would, gain this information and learn lessons from these other bands. So we were learning from their mistakes without having to make our own mistakes. And that was something that's really helped us out.
That's awesome. We're talking with David, the bassist of the band Within Reason. Their latest song, Invictus, spinning here on The Dark. I want to get to that song in just a moment, but let's talk about the band name Within Reason. I'm sure you get asked this question all the time. Is there a meaning behind that, or how did you guys come up with this name?
There is a meaning behind it. So when we were first moved back to Birmingham after college, our drummer used to live in this neighborhood on the south side of Birmingham, and we would rehearse. He had the biggest house, so we would rehearse at his house. And being kind of a young band, we would just set up the full PA in there and just blow the windows out of that place. So, usually, when it got to be 10 or 11 o'clock at night, the police would always come knock on the door and tell us to turn it down. But the same cop would always show up. It's always the same guy. And he would always say, hey, guys, the neighbors are complaining. Just, take a break for about an hour, and then y'all guys, you can crank it back up. Just keep your volume within reason. You'll be okay. So when we were, trying to come up with a band name, somebody mentioned him, that guy saying that. And we were like, man, that's the name. Let's just use that.
That's awesome. Now, is that officer still around, or is he a fan of yours?
I have no idea. I hope so. Hopefully, if I get in a pickle, he'll be the guy that shows up.
Exactly. Let's talk about you a little bit, David. I guess, what's your music background growing up in that, I guess? What inspired you to turn towards the music world?
It's interesting because my parents weren't really musically inclined. My mom sang at church, and my dad, was, kind of a guitar player around the house. But they had a lot of records. So growing up, we had a record player still. Mm-hmm. And, I would always kind of sift through the records. And I was actually having this conversation the other day with somebody. I was talking about how kids today make it so easy to discover music. When I was a kid, we had to, dig through tapes and go to a record store and dig through records and, try to find a physical copy of that recording to learn about stuff. So, it kind of opened doors for me, and I got into, the older country stuff my dad was into, and that led me into the blues, and that led me into bands like the Allman Brothers. And, being from the South, in our world, Allman Brothers and Marshall Tucker and Leonard Skinner and that Southern rock is predominant in our area. And that kind of led me into other things, and then I was about maybe 12 or 13 years old when the grunge thing hit. And when Pearl Jam started for me, that was it. I'm still in the fan club for Pearl Jam to this day. And that took off into a whole new world of music for me. So I finally, became just so hungry for everything I can get my hands on, and I didn't discriminate against what it was. If I liked the way it sounded, then I was into it. And I think that's kind of helped with our songwriting because there's so many different influences, and Chris is the same way, that you can kind of hear a little bit of that, different genres and influences in our music today.
Now, you guys obviously you and Chris are the ones that form the band, but now you guys go out on tour and that. Do you get other tour, or I guess bandmates then, to join you at that time, or do you have a full touring band?
We do. We currently have a full touring band. We've had the same guys for a couple of years. We kind of made a decision 5 or 6 years ago, because when you're an up-and-coming band, especially an independent one, you kind of have to put your life on hold and focus on getting the band to a place where it's sustainable. Because, at some point in your career, you're going to have to say, is this going to be a hobby, or are we going to make this a sustainable business? So, we had guys that were in the band for a while that, got married and had kids, and they couldn't tour, and which is fine. We had, guys that wanted to go to school. So we kind of just made the collective decision where, me and Chris kind of started it. So, we've got guys that tour with us, and they're great friends of ours, and they've been with us for a while. But as far as the core goes, Chris and I are the core of the band, and, we have great guys that work for us.
Now, I heard of the band Within Reason probably back in 2014 or so. I think you put out a song called Enemy that actually went to rock radio, and we were spinning it here. And that was the first time that I had heard about you guys. And then I think after that, you had another song called Here Comes the Light. How did those two songs do, I guess, for your first maybe couple of songs to break out to rock radio?
They did surprisingly well. I think Enemy, maybe on the active rock chart, hit like 43. And Here Comes the Light broke 40. I think it peaked at 39.
Okay.
So we had our first top 40 hit with Here Comes the Light. And then Invictus is our third song, which, surprisingly to everybody involved, we broke into the 20s with that one. So hopefully, we'll just keep doing what we do. And at the end of the day, it's not really about numbers as much as it's about reaching people that can understand the music or, have a reaction to it.
Yeah.
But at the same time, there's a business side to everything.
Yeah, I get that. And I guess that's my question for you, too, is, how important is it for you guys to get the charts? I mean, obviously, it has to open some doors for programmers. They look and say, oh, yeah, I remember that band. They had a top 40 song. I'll give it a listen. Is that definitely what you're starting to see now?
That's definitely it. So it's like when Enemy came out, we were new. Nobody really knew anything about us. And then, it did well. Some stations added it. Here Comes the Light. They remembered Enemy, and they were like, yeah, this is pretty cool. Luckily, Here Comes the Light did really well, and it broke 40. So when Invictus came out, there was a handful of program directors that remembered Here Comes the Light, and there was no question they added us. But it definitely helps. It's kind of getting your name on the list for ads. But it also helps with touring because as a support band, you want to get on a national tour, and to get on a really good tour, the headliner band needs somebody that can help sell tickets. So if you've got a song that's on the radio that people know, then it helps sell tickets in turn and get you on better tours, which makes more money, and you can continue for the next year.
I guess I've never really asked some of the bands, because I normally talk to a lot of up-and-coming bands, but I've never really asked a band, and I've talked to a few established bands that have been out there. I've never asked that band what they always choose as their final song when they're on tour, because there's always that signature song. Is it the song normally that broke you out and that the people everybody know, or what song would you guys pick, I guess, if it would be your final song?
Well, I think the last 3 or 4 tours that we did, we ended with we actually ended with a cover of "Lost in the Echo" by Linkin Park.
Yeah.
Because that song was always really fun to us because the lyric content meant a lot to us. And there's a line in that song that says, "You go hard, and we go smart." But it was always like a big song to end on. But we kind of changed our set list up now. We kind of do that thing where if we're doing 18 shows on a tour, we kind of want to shuffle the songs in, because an opening band, if you get 35, 40 minutes,
right,
it's hard, in my opinion, it's hard to be like, man, there's so many songs I want to play, but we can't play them all. So we kind of shuffle them in and out. But just about every show, we start with Enemy right out of the bat because it's high energy. And then we'll usually do, whatever song is this current single will be the next to the last song.
Okay. Gotcha. Let's talk about the single Invictus. As you mentioned, you got into the top 30. Give us the story behind that, and I think you got some help from a couple of the guys from Hinder, too, on this, didn't you?
Yeah, it's actually a really interesting story. So we went on tour with Hinder, and we were currently kind of shopping producers for the record because we never wanted to make the same record twice. We wanted all our records to sound different, so we were shifting producers around. And we were on tour with Hinder, and we were kind of kicking the idea around with some of those guys, asking questions like, who do you use? Well, it turns out their drummer, Cody Hansen, and their singer, Marshall Dutton, they have a production studio in Oklahoma City. So we had a day off in Oklahoma, and Cody was like, first of all, when you're touring, there's 2 things you're really looking for on your day off. You're like, where can I take a shower, and where can I charge my phone?
Mm-hmm.
So Cody's like, I have several showers at my house. Y'all come over to my house and take a shower. But it was kind of a ploy for him to show us his studio in there. So when we got in there, it just felt right. And I told Chris, I said, man, let's just do it here. So we spent about 9 months in Oklahoma City on our off time and worked on the Battlefields record with Cody and Marshall. And we had Invictus partially done for a long time, almost a year, I think. And we couldn't get past the last, the song starts off, I didn't sell my soul for rock and roll.
Right.
And we couldn't figure out where to take it from there. But what we decided to do is that song is basically about, what our life is like as a professional musician up to this point. So it's almost like that song had been writing itself for 12 years, because you had to write about those kind of things. You have to experience those kind of things. So it's like that's what that song is kind of about, and it's kind of how we do the things that we do the way we want to do them. And there's always naysayers, and there's always people that are talking trash and telling you can't do something, and that just kind of shows that we're not going to listen to that. Like, we're just going to do what we do. And if it feels right, we're going to do it. And that's kind of where that song came from.
The thing, too, is crazy that this song is held so well on the top 40 charts. I think it's at 16 weeks or so already. And, nowadays in rock radio, if you can last maybe 12 weeks, you're lucky.
Yeah.
Back in the day, you could be on for like a whole year. It just doesn't happen anymore. So this song definitely has legs, doesn't it?
It does, and that's interesting because, there's always a plan when it comes to radio, because there's so many new songs getting added. Like, you want to push your song as far as you can get it on the chart, let it hit its peak, and then when it hits its peak and it starts sliding back down, that's when you reload with a new single. The band Stone Sour are masters at that.
Right.
So, we were kind of sitting around waiting for that thing to slide, and it's sliding very slow. We're still just kind of riding it, and we're just going to, we kind of took our hands off the wheel almost like 3 weeks ago, and we're just like, let's just see where it goes, see what happens, let this thing play out.
Yeah.
It's still kind of hanging, so we're there.
It's crazy. I remember putting it in back in July of last year, and we're still talking about that song. That doesn't happen very often.
It doesn't, but I'm glad it's happening to us.
Absolutely. So I guess the next question then, David, is do we have a new song lined up ready to go, or is that still hush-hush at this time?
We have one that Chris and I believe is the one. We kind of did some testing because, you get it. Like, you test it with a bunch of people, and we kind of made the decision, like I was saying earlier, like, we feel like this is the one, so we're going to go with it and see what happens. I don't know if I can tell you what it is yet, but hopefully you'll have it soon, like in the next, I don't know, we'll see. If the Invictus still hangs, I don't know. But we have one ready, to answer your question. Yes, we have a song ready.
Perfect. And let's talk about touring, David. What's the future for that?
I'd like to tour the rest of the year. So we've got a couple of things with the agents are discussing, a couple of tours, trying to put them together. We're hoping to get out in the springtime. We like to do, 6 to 8 weeks out and then come home for a couple of weeks and then go back out 6 to 8. Going out and doing like super long 3 or 4 month tours, it's the perfect way to just wear your soul thin. We used to do that, and they have this, I don't know if it's a real condition, but I always heard about it, and it was called deep tour. And if you ever get like deep tours when you're like a zombie, like your routine is so set that you don't know where you are, and you forget what city you're in. All you see is the bus to the venue to the bus, and you go to sleep and get up and do it again. And when you get into that mode, it's almost like it's not that fun anymore. You're just kind of doing it. So we try to keep it fresh and go out for 6 to 8 weeks and come home and recharge the batteries and go back out.
Got to do that, definitely. We're talking with David from the band Within Reason. Hey, let's talk about this since we're talking touring. If you had to put together your ultimate band bill, let's give you 3 other bands to go out on tour with, maybe even this year, who would you love to go out on tour with right now?
Like as one bill, or like it's just the 3 bands we'd like to go out with?
It could be 3 bands you'd love to go out with. How's that?
I would absolutely love to go out with Pearl Jam.
Yeah.
Just because I don't even know if like playing the shows for me would be the highlight of that, or would be getting to watch them every night.
Right.
Another band I would love to tour with would be the Foo Fighters. They're so good with their fans. They're so good with their audience. They're masters of their craft. And a third band is a band that at first it didn't make sense to tour them. We've done 4 tours of this band. And they've been so nice and so good to us and treated us so great and did anything that they could do to help us with our career, and that band is Godsmack. And whenever they call our agent, we're like, I don't even care if they won't pay us, we'll go.
That's awesome.
It's worth it.
Yeah, that's the thing. I still go back to that question I asked you, you got any bands that have helped you out? And by you saying that question, then what is the one thing that you regret doing or whatever? That's a great thing. That's a great way to learn in this industry, isn't it?
It is. And I'd say another thing for bands that are new bands or up and coming or trying to break through, like when you do start touring, the number one thing you can do is to get in with other bands' crew members, because the people in the crews will teach you everything you need to know to be successful on the road. And we have done that, and you'll learn that a lot of the crew guys, they all bounce around to different bands. So you could show up on a tour and with all these crew guys that you already know from other bands. And that's a good way that we learned how to do things. We learned how to, get on and off the deck quickly. Like we did a tour, the Upward Energy Drink Festival, 2015, I think maybe, and which was a big festival tour. And we played right before Buck Cherry every day. Mm-hmm. And they were always teaching us how to, be self-contained on stage to get your gear off the stage in time for the changeover in festival style. Well, we got to a place where we could get all of our gear off the stage and have Buck Cherry set up in under 10 minutes. Wow. So that got us onto a tour with Buck Cherry following that. So they remembered, their crew guys were like, well, within reason, these guys are pro, and they get their stuff off the stage very quickly. So it's worth the money to pay them to come. So it makes our job easy.
Right.
Things like that have helped.
And the thing is, that's a life lesson, not only just for bands, but for anybody, to get to know the people behind the scenes rather than just the big show people up front, because the ones behind the scenes are probably the ones that are going to help you out the most.
You're right. And I don't know how many times I've said to a crew member, as soon as I can afford you, you will be working for me. I said that probably to 50 people.
Well, I suppose you have dreams. What are kind of your dreams? What would you love to do with this band? What's the next step, I guess, for it?
I just want to keep writing songs and putting out records that are relevant to people. It sounds crazy, but I want to make enough money to only do that and focus on that.
Right.
And just be a part of it. It's something really special. It's weird. It's like, you go through these phases as a band where you're a new band and all you think about is like, I just want to get there and be rich and famous and do all that. And then you get into the business side of it and you're like, well, let's talk about sustainability and how this works. And then once you figure out your system, then you come back to, great, now we have a system, let's implement that system where we can keep doing this the rest of our life. Hopefully make a statement, touch some people, and make a lot of money doing it.
Awesome. I know we could talk forever, but we got to get going here. David, the last question I got to ask, as I always do, how can people find out more information about the band Within Reason?
The best place to go is on our website, which is withinreasonmusic.com. And on that page, there are link bars that it takes you to every place. We're everywhere on Facebook, Twitter. We have a YouTube channel. And one thing we do on our social media for sure is, like, we don't have a manager doing that. We don't have, like, an intern doing that. So, if you send us an email on the website or on Facebook or hit us up on Twitter, it's Chris or I that you're speaking with. And we are try to make ourselves as accessible as possible, because it's always good for everybody to be a part of something. And that's kind of where we want to kind of keep our band. Our fans are so important to us. You can have the fastest race car, but if you don't have the gas to put in that race car, then it's just a pile of junk. And that's kind of how we look at our band.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And, of course, I know you'll be touring eventually, and hopefully you'll make a stop up in Minnesota too, right?
Generally, we come up there. And hopefully this time it'll be in the spring. Last time we were there, I think it was like the wind chill was like negative 50.
Well,
and I was like, look, we're from Alabama, dude. Like, I can't handle this. Like, it gets 30 degrees in Birmingham. They shut the schools down. I can't deal with that.
If you get a trace of snow, everything's closed down there too, right?
Yeah. Even if somebody says the word snow on the news, they're like, oh, schools are closed, dude. Grocery stores are raided. And then everybody sits on their front porch waiting for the snow to start, and it never comes.
Awesome. David, a lot of fun talking to you. I wish you the best of luck, too. And we're going to play your latest song, Invictus, right now, okay?
Great. Thanks for having me on the show, man. I enjoyed it.
Awesome. Once again, that is David from the band Within Reason. Their latest song is Invictus. You're hearing it right now. It's on The Dark. It's on FM 94.